Notice how I'm making a video about the PS5 instead of actually playing games on it? It's almost like the PS5 doesn't have any... Yeah, that joke's been made to death already. Probably more than the amount of games on the PS5. So, it's 2024 now. Well, 2025 in a few months. How the fuck is it already September? But very soon, the PS5 and by extension the Xbox Series X will have been out for almost 4 years now, and I've owned my PS5 since January of 2021, and it brought all new features and powers and just possibilities to consoles that we haven't seen before. Like ray tracing, insane hyper-realistic graphics, VRR support, a controller that can double as a mic, which is not as cool as it sounds when you hear the buttons constantly clicking on your team's voice chats, and a standard 60 FPS option for a lot of games and even 120 FPS in other games? Well, I mean, kind of. But as for games, you know, the thing that most people keep in mind when buying a console? I mean, on one hand, there's been a lot of good games, especially third-party titles, and so if you enjoy the simplicity and comfort that a lot of consoles offer, by just being able to plug it in and play from the get-go, then there's a lot of incredible games that have come out this generation, especially if you only really want a console and don't want any other system like a PC. So like Hades, Returnal, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Ghost of Tsushima, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Baldur's Gate 3, Alan Wake 2, motherfucking Elden Ring? But the thing is, all of these games I've just offered as examples are either already available on other consoles or on PC. And the general exclusive lineup, especially if you're the type of person who buys consoles to play the first-party titles, it's really not looking that great. And I mean, it's part of the reason why I personally have been growing more and more disappointed with my decision to sell my PS4 Pro and buy a PS5, rather than stick with the older console and put that money towards something else, like upgrading my PC at some point, or getting one of those cool-ass toothbrushes you see at the dental section of Walmart. God, those look fucking awesome. But let me give you an overview about my standpoint before we go any further. So, for as long as I've been playing video games, I've always had a console. I've played on many different systems growing up, primarily on Nintendo and Xbox, but I did own a PS3 and played a little bit of PS2 here and there, and even though I did prefer playing on something like an Xbox 360 or Wii a lot of times, I loved having a PlayStation to play some of the games that were unavailable on other platforms. Games like Ratchet and Clank, Heavy Rain, The Last of Us, Killzone, as well as a lot of the fighters that only came to PS3 because of Xbox's terrible support for Japanese games. And hell, the main reason why I even bought a PS2 back in the day was to play Soul Calibur 3. And by back in the day, I mean 2012. But there was always games that caught my eye on PlayStation, and it wasn't until around near the end of the PS4 era where I really started to get into PlayStation as a primary system. This was about a year after I built my first gaming PC. I also had an Xbox One at the time, and paired with many of the games that were coming out for PS4, such as Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Detroit Become Human, along with my general growing disappointment with the Xbox One, I decided to make the switch, no pun intended, and make the PS4 my primary system, and it was a decision I did not regret one bit. Although at the same time, I was starting to play my PC a lot more. But I was still interested in playing on my PS4 a lot too, but when I saw the PS5 was coming out soon, I was definitely interested. Especially with how well they nailed it during the previous generations, and from what was shown off during the reveal, I wanted to experience it as soon as I could. But, you know, of course, with the pandemic and the infestation of cockroaches known as scalpers, that bought up all the PS5s only to sell them at ludicrously high prices definitely made it more difficult. And I was going to wait a couple of years before buying one, especially since God of War Ragnarok was announced as a PS5 exclusive at the time. But that was going to be the primary game I would purchase a PS5 for. But then I thought to myself, I currently have a PS4 Pro, and I could sell it for a pretty good price now if I did get a PS5, because while the PS5 might not be any cheaper by the time God of War Ragnarok came out, my PS4 Pro would certainly be worth a little bit less. So I decided to keep out an eye for one, and with the plan of selling my PS4 Pro if I did find a PS5, since I wouldn't exactly be needing a PS4 anymore if I did sell my PS5. That was my plan. And as luck would have it, 2 months after the PS5 launched, in the midst of a second lockdown, I just so happened to find a PS5 disc edition at a Shoppers Drug Mart of all places. And for those of you who don't know, Shoppers Drug Mart is basically the Canadian equivalent of a CVS or Walgreens. I went to Best Buy afterwards to purchase a copy of the Demon's Souls remake, and I was good to go. And I was pretty much ready for what the next generation of gaming had to offer. And 3 years, I'm still kind of waiting for it. Like, for example, I bought the Switch and the PS4 with the goal of playing first-party titles primarily, like God of War, Bloodborne, as you can see right here, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima. All of those games made me incredibly happy when I was playing them, and definitely made me happy with my decision to get a PS4. I mean, hell, my Nintendo Switch was pretty much a $400 Smash Bros. Ultimate and Fire Emblem Three Houses machine, and you know what? I was really happy with that. But with the PS5, I've kind of failed to find that same experience. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely been some games I've really enjoyed on the PS5 since then, namely the Demon's Souls remake, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, Final Fantasy XVI, and not to mention Astrobot coming out soon, or just minus the coming out soon depending on how long it takes me to make this video. Like, all of these seem like great games and are great games. I don't know if it's because these games are already coming to PC or are on PC, or if I've just become more jaded about gaming as a whole, but none of these games really felt like it was enough to justify dropping over $600 on a system where I can either play these games on PC, or at least the emulated version of the original Demon's Souls. It's also why I haven't really bothered getting Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Stellar Blade just yet, because I know they'll come to PC eventually, and there's plenty of other games I would much rather play in the meantime. And as for PlayStation's heavy hitters goes, I just haven't really found myself that interested in them. Like, I did enjoy God of War Ragnarok for what it was, but I would say I didn't enjoy it as much as 2018. And Horizon Forbidden West and Spider-Man 2 and Gran Turismo, all of those games just don't really interest me the same way that the PS3 or the PS4's exclusive lineup did. But, I mean, maybe that's just a me thing, but still. And plus, I've just been growing more and more disappointed with the direction that PlayStation has been taking as of late. Like, for example, the closure of Japan Studio, raising the prices of PS Plus for no reason whatsoever. That paired with everything I just mentioned regarding the games, all of that has just kind of soured my experience. But, I mean, it isn't all bad. I mean, the general console experience is quite nice. The controller is still really cool, albeit with the shitty battery life, and while I have thought about selling my PS5 at times and just buying like a used PS4 again, it's still kind of nice to have a PS5, especially since I can use it to play games that are unoptimized as hell on PC, or play PS4 exclusives without having to worry about my system sounding like a 747 about to take off on an active runway. So I might hang on to my PS5, but like I'm kind of like going back and forth between I should sell it, I should keep it, I should sell it, I should keep it. But still, there are a lot of things I wish they did differently, and if I had known how this generation was gonna turn out, I would have just kept my PS4 Pro. But, I mean, since I have the PS5 already, I might as well hang on to it. At least, that's my stance right now. But that about wraps up my rants. Thank you all for listening to me as long as you guys did. I would like to hear what you guys think down in the comments, whether or not you've been disappointed with the PS5 as well, or if you haven't even bought one because you haven't been impressed with what's been out so far, or if you got like an Xbox Series X or S and feel the same kind of disappointment with it too, or if you guys have been enjoying this generation all around. But regardless, I am curious to hear what you guys have to say. But until next time, thank you all for tuning in, and I'll be back with some more goofy ass videos and discussions like this. I will see you all next time. Umbruhh out.